This is the high point of Tehran's political and religious week. Friday prayers is where people come to worship, to show solidarity, and to hear the latest in government thinking. Today, the main speaker is Ayatollah Ardebili, and although he's following convention and gripping a rifle barrel, the church militant, it doesn't come naturally to him. Ardebili is Iran's foremost conciliator, with a seat on every government commission set up to solve the constant disputes within Iran's narrow political system. He's not much of an orator, and the congregation is anyway on the thin side for a Friday. It's still the Iranian New Year holiday, for one thing. For another, it's dangerous. For these people to be gathered here is, of course, an act of faith, but not exclusively in the religious sense. Every week, for the past 3 weeks or so, Iraqi missiles have been landing on the center of Tehran during Friday prayers, and everyone here knows it could happen today. Minutes later, the red alert sounded from every radio and television set in Tehran, but either the missiles weren't aimed at us in the prayer meeting, or else they were off course. Tehran received its daily ration all the same. Apartment blocks, offices, hospitals. It's the same picture in each of them. The wild, disorganized attempts at rescue, the acts of selflessness, the bodies that no amount of effort can bring back to life. And just occasionally, the people who've survived against all the odds. These pictures were shot by cameramen from Iranian television, but haven't been broadcast inside Iran. Rather like the British government during the Blitz, the authorities here think the damage to civilian morale would be too serious. And anyway, the psychological effect of the missiles is very different from that of bombs dropped from aircraft. The bomb attacks here used to unite people in a common will to resist, but there's something about the purely random nature of the missile striking anywhere at any time that divides people and makes them relieved each time it's someone else's house that's hit. Now, though, there's a different fear that Tehran might share the fate of Halabja in Iraqi Kurdistan, taken over 2 weeks ago by Kurdish guerrillas siding with the advancing Iranian forces. Most of the people in Halabja died from cyanide gas, perhaps the worst use of chemical weapons against civilians in modern warfare. For a time, the fearful nature of the destruction handed out by the Iraqis to people who were, strictly speaking, their own citizens, obscured the fact that Iran was driving deep into Iraqi territory and was menacing part of Baghdad's electricity and water supplies. Now, though, the message has sunk in, and Iran's political leaders, men like Mr. Mousavi, the Prime Minister, are at last allowing themselves to hope that the stalemate in the war might be coming to an end.
From the outset, when we were in a much worse position, we had no doubts that we would achieve military victory in this war, even though we were disappointed with international bodies. Of course, our victory at Halabja would naturally have enhanced this notion, both inside and outside Iran.
Does that mean that you believe that victory is now within sight, or is it months away, years away still?
We never specify the precise date of victory because there are external elements which interfere with this war. But as to whether this war will end with military victory for us, we have no doubts, unless the world community takes steps towards seeing that justice is done.
If, after so many false alarms, Iran were eventually to go on and win the war, the effects would be startling. For a start, it would set the seal on the Islamic system here. Partly, that's because it's undergone so many changes of direction since the revolution. What's survived during these 9 years, though, is an essentially free market system. Not capitalism, since that's regarded as un-Islamic, but a system wherein businessmen are free to trade as they wish and make a profit. But in the Majlis, or Parliament, the question of free market economics versus greater and greater state control has become the central political issue. Only those who support the basic concepts of the Islamic Republic can be members here, but within that narrow compass, there's a surprisingly open debate. It's presided over by Ali Akbar Rafsanjani, the second most powerful man in Iran after Khomeini himself. Parties as such don't exist now, but But there is a basic divide between the conservatives, who want to retain the free market system, and the radicals, who want more and more intervention by the state.
Certainly, there are two distinct approaches in our country. However, these two approaches, which are crystallized in the form of various institutions, are agreed on our national and Islamic interests. It is the kind of agreement or understanding that may be said to exist between the Labour and the Conservative parties in Britain. In view of our system of values and the globally declared objectives of our Islamic revolution, there is a kind of understanding between these two approaches on the basic principles, while there is a sort of healthy competition between them. But I think this competition is on the whole in the interest of our country.
It may not be the kind of setting one readily associates with Iran, but it's a clear sign of political change all the same. This is a concert broadcast a short time ago on Iranian television. The extraordinary thing about it for the viewers is that Persian classical music's being played. Ever since the revolution, that's been regarded as anti-Islamic and harking back to the days of the Shah. Suddenly, the Persian past is acceptable. This change, like so many, has been made possible by the Imam Khomeini himself. He's frailer nowadays, and his voice is weak. But contrary to what people outside Iran believe, his immense influence is always used now to try to bring harmony to the opposing factions in Iranian political life. And he's slowly preparing people for the time when he won't be there to act as the supreme arbiter.
One of the great achievements of our leader is that he has begun the complete institutionalization of the decision-making systems in Iran. I think this is the first revolution in history to have its constitution prepared and ratified by the people within the first year of its victory. This policy has been vehemently pursued in order that the fate of the country would be made totally independent of the fate of individuals. Looking at the Imam's family, we find that all members have lived long lives. However, to be realistic, I can say that our system has achieved a sufficient degree of stability to survive any eventuality.
Friday prayers are almost over, undisturbed for once by Iraqi missiles. The extraordinary system by which religion has become the ruling political force of a great country is still undergoing change. For now, the radicals are in the ascendant, and centralized state control is getting stronger all the time. And yet, if Imam Khomeini dies, if there really is a successful end to the war, then the system will change again. It's stable enough, but it's still not settled.